Okay, there we go. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Mr. Ting. Welcome to a new year of Budget Subcommittee number 2 on Education Finance. This is our first hearing of the year, first of many subcommittee hearings this year on the education finance topic. And today we'll be discussing Prop 98 and the governor's proposed budget and his major K-12 education proposals. The overview for the community college piece of the Prop 98 budget will be heard next week in the higher ed section. The governor's 2016-2017 budget proposes a Prop 98 funding level of about $71.5 billion for K-12 schools and community colleges. This is good news. It's roughly about $10,500 per student, an increase of about $368 per student from last year's budget, and as we know, a significant increase from 2011-2012. But as you all know in the room working on the education arena with the Great Recession, we certainly had a big hit in our public schools, and we haven't fully recovered. We still lag when compared to the rest of the nation in per pupil funding, and that's certainly a goal of this subcommittee, and I think the Assembly, to try to focus on the premise of Prop 98 a couple decades ago and have California among the top states in the nation as in per pupil funding. Overall, this year's budget is a good start. You know, we have solid footing in our statewide economy, allowing us to reinvest in education. The governor's budget, we'll hear in a few weeks, proposes to further invest in our local control funding formula. And this subcommittee process this year will have a robust conversation about that, as well as a conversation about early education in California. And I look forward to all these hearings, but today we're going to begin with the Prop 98 piece and look forward to hearing from our Department of Finance, the administration, the Department of Education, and the Legislative Analyst's Office on the budget, and look forward to work with all of you in crafting our 2016-2017 budget. But before that, we certainly have a lot of conversations on the state of education, and we'd like to bring up our Superintendent of Public Instruction, Mr. Tom Torlakson, to give an update on Prop 98, the state of education. And I would know that you're a former chair of this subcommittee, right?
I was a hardworking member.
You're a member. You were never a chair of Sub 2. Okay. Before I begin, Mr. Ting, do you have any intro comments to start the year? Okay. Here we go.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And indeed, this is a great opportunity. I appreciate your framing the issues that there's good news and then there's the ongoing challenges to be as best as California can be and has been in the past in so many respects. So, again, I thank you for the opportunity. As you know, it is an exciting time in education with new standards, new assessments, new accountability systems, and continuous improvement systems taking off, the collaborative for education excellence moving forward. So there's a lot of good news on the horizon. And as you mentioned, this year's budget is good news for California's teachers, classified staff, administrators, school board members, and, of course, for our students. As you mentioned, the ongoing economic recovery will increase Prop 98 budget guarantee to schools up to approximately $72 billion. That's, again, as you underscored, a huge improvement from the $47.3 billion that we had 5 years ago in the depths of the recession. As things get better, I don't want anyone to forget how much schools suffered during the recession. School districts dramatically increased class sizes, laid off over 50,000 teachers and classified staff, slashed arts, music, drama, dance, civics, science. So our curricular efforts and academic efforts were hurt. Teachers and classified staff and all the team that I just mentioned worked valiantly through the recession and sacrificed much and gave their heart and soul to their jobs to helping kids. But it's been a blessing and a joy to see resources coming back and rebuilding programs that have been dismantled and creating new programs that are having a dramatic effect on improved student learning and preparation for career and college. Many talented teachers did leave during the Great Recession. We had a large number of talented teachers leaving. Enrollment in teacher training programs plummeted. The supply of newly prepared teachers is at a 12-year low, with enrollment in California teacher preparation programs, down 76% from 2001-2014. The number of preliminary teaching credentials issued dropped 58% from 2003 to 2015, according to the California Teaching Credentialing Commission. Last year, only 15,000 new teachers were credentialed. The marketplace, the need, the demand was at 22,000, so we fell short by 7,000. So this is a keen focus of my department, a high priority to deal, and we will look forward to working with you, Mr. Chairman, and the legislature and the governor on what we can do to attract more young people and career changers to come into this great profession. To bring California student-teacher ratios back to where they were just before the recession, schools would have to hire approximately 60,000 new teachers beyond current hiring needs. So we're on the right track, but I ask the question, is it enough? Is it adequate? Is it where California should be? And my answer, and I think yours collectively, is no, we must invest more, and I would say much more. Just consider comparative per-pupil investments, per-pupil spending in other states compared to California. You mentioned that this year's budget brings us to $10,500 approximately per pupil. That's about 42nd, 43rd in the nation, depending on what yardstick you use, what ruler you use. I'll give you a couple of states. These are stats from 2013. California at that time was $8,200 per pupil. At that same time, New Hampshire was $13,700, Massachusetts $14,500, Vermont $16,400, New Jersey $17,500, and New York very close to $20,000. And no surprise that, generally speaking, their academic success paralleled the level of investment in the kind of things that we talked about just a minute ago. So we do need to do better. Californians clearly care about their schools, and they're willing to invest in education. Our residents, our voters, have consistently supported local measures, parcel taxes, local bonds, and supported statewide Prop 30 and other big statewide bond measures. I support strongly extending Proposition 30 funding and continuing to deliver the nearly $8 billion annually for 21st century learning and career preparation. Without an extension, the sales tax portion, about $2 billion, will drop to zero in 2018-19, and the personal income tax will drop from $7 billion that same budget year, $2.8 billion the next year, and then $0 in 2019-20. This could see us back in the place where we're having to look at reduction, collapsing programs, layoffs. That's why, again, I'm so strongly supporting. And I believe the public wants to have a chance to vote on this and will vote favorably when given that chance. I was serving in the Assembly here back in 1998 when a team of us put together Senate Bill 50, which started the school construction program. As you know, almost $30 billion has run through that program, the Senate Bill 50 formula. By and large, a very successful program with some streamlining that did occur during the process, and the legislature held hearings last year. The Assembly held hearings and looked at ways to streamline even further a new bond measure. We know that the age of our buildings, there's huge numbers of our buildings that are over 70 years old. Another big portion of our buildings, school buildings, are 50 years or older. So we need to invest in that, and I'm strongly supporting the ballot measure that is on November ballot for $9 billion. Our students deserve to have the 21st century learning centers with the right lighting, the right bandwidth, the right science labs, the right career tech facilities, and the bright classrooms where the air conditioning heating work. So we see this since 2006 being the last measure that was passed. There's been a real need that's continuing to compound and build. I estimate, and a couple of different sources, that we have at least $20 billion of locally approved measures which voters went to the polls, listening to their school board and teachers and the local education team. They went to the voters and said, please vote, and we'll be matched by the state. And so I believe the state match is very important, and once we get our program back and going again with this November ballot measure, we will be able to see the release and the implementation of at least $20 billion of local funds the voters have set aside. An area that I wish to emphasize, and I'll just mention the bond measure itself, has $3 billion for new construction K-12, $3 billion for modernization K-12, $500 million for charter schools, $500 million for career technical education, and $2 billion for community colleges. On another topic, we've made some big strides in the CTE, and we just need to keep moving forward. Thank you for your support. The governor and the legislature have invested heavily in this. We called it vocational education at one time, but it is a dynamic, new, modern way of getting kids connected to the real world, hands-on learning, all that our new standards call for, and connected to their future and to jobs and careers, college that will have them fulfill their dreams and be productive members of our society. California has dedicated more funding to CTE than the entire federal government spending on CTE. The last year, the legislature, thank you again, approved $900 million in career technical education incentive grants. Dozens of districts and other agencies will accelerate the development of new career programs over the next 3 years. My department awarded nearly $500 million to California Career Pathways Trust grants for 79 school districts, county offices of education, community colleges, and charter schools in 2014-15. These career pathway trusts have again created remarkable learning teams combining labor, high schools, community colleges, and businesses in a team effort based on the needs of the regional economy. So far, more than 3,000 businesses have offered CTE internships and mentorships that integrate closely with academic learning, again, providing hands-on opportunities for students to see what new jobs are out there and begin to imagine what new jobs might be created that they will be ready to fill. We also know that CTE shows effective results in student success. Students in career partnerships have graduation rates 95% and higher, significantly higher than our record-setting overall graduation rate of 81%. We're at an all-time high at 81% graduation rate, but think if we had more of these programs, how much higher that would be. Another keen topic of concern to all the members of this committee is the early learning programs. The governor proposes to redirect $1.7 billion in Proposition 98 funds to create a new block grant for low-income and at-risk preschoolers, 4-year-olds and young 5-year-olds. This program redirects all Proposition 98 funds from state preschool, which is about $878 million, transitional kindergarten, $726 million, and the state preschool quality rating improvement system, QRIS grant, $50 million. The block grant would be given to local agencies, LEAs, and potentially other entities that currently offer preschool programs. So I look forward to further discussions. We're awaiting further details. We have created some working groups that are looking at the possibilities of the governor's proposal, and also, concerns and questions that have arisen. How do we maintain quality? How do we continue to have the quality that we've invested in so heavily? So again, we need to provide that high quality instruction, maximize access for our youngest learners, especially at-risk children in low-income communities. The CDE has focused on guaranteeing through the QRI system. We've guaranteed that framework and are working hard to implement it further, and we should keep that focus. We must also maintain appropriate adult-to-child ratios in the schools. The two charts that I just wanted to point out, one of them is in your packet. I think it's page 5. This is a chart that shows K-12 funding from 2007-8 to 2016-17. And you can see that K-12 spending is reaching back up to where it was in 2007. The other table, though, shows you what the situation is with preschool, and this is why I wanted to underscore that in addition to maintaining quality, whatever new system we come up with shouldn't cap the spending. It needs to really look at the growth, the need that's enormous in early learning. And if you look at this chart, you can see that in 2007-8, we had 346,000 students in infant, toddler, preschool, and school-age childcare. In the most recent numbers we have, 2013-14, we have about 270,000. That's 22% less than we had in 2007. So K-12 funding has recovered still needing more, as we've all testified to, but it has not happened for early learning opportunities. And so I think we want to see more in this area. I want to see more. I would like to see us have a debate, a discussion about full-day kindergarten, mandatory kindergarten, and other ways to really help early learners. The water cooler conference is here. We listened to scientists talking about brain development, and we know the early years are critically important for success in kindergarten, for success, proficiency in reading by third grade, and graduation and productive careers beyond that. The last area I wanted to mention was English learners, and we have a specific emphasis. We've consolidated within my department all the English learner programs under one division and really focusing on this. It's part of our LCAPs in the state. It's part of our local control funding formula, and we need to do a lot more to help our English learners succeed. And without their succeeding, California can't succeed and our economy can't succeed. We do have in the governor's budget 3 positions to help us provide accountability and advice to school districts in providing services to English learners. So we'd appreciate the committee's support of those three positions in the budget. And I just want to say we've seen a phenomenal interest in biliteracy, and we went from a few years ago, several of you here voted for the seal of biliteracy. Started out around 8,000 a year, we're up to about 35,000 a year. So we just want to focus more on that area, and thank you for the work you've been doing, and look forward to working closely with you. I'd be glad to answer questions and also maybe make a comment or two if you'd like about the new ESSA, Every Child Succeeds Act, and how it interfaces with California.
Okay. Well, you can start with that piece. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, just to say, we're glad finally, after years of going back to Washington and lobbying for a new education act, that we have it. It adopts many of the features that we were asking for, that I had been lobbying for, and that the State Superintendents Association had been lobbying for: local control, more emphasis on capacity building, and less on, test and punish kind of approach. And so we call it the California way. We think it's now embodied in ESSA, and we're pleased with that. And we're still unpacking all of its implications, but think there's a lot of opportunities to co-fund the programs that we care about. Thank you.
Okay. I have a few issues to maybe ask that you
Sure.
Opined a bit more on. You mentioned earlier that a teacher issue, and that's certainly a big focus of ours, not only to recruit more teachers, but also to help support the existing teachers in the classroom and make sure they stay and don't leave. And we have to get more, so it's kind of a twofer thing there. Last year we put a lot of money into the bits and the par piece for teacher support, and so that's we're looking at over 3 years, and so. At some point, we'll probably ask. We'll have a section on that to have your department report back how that's going, but focused on kind of the teacher recruitment, which I'm hearing locally in my own districts, at my own kids' school. I'm sure my colleagues up here are the same in their local areas. There's a lot of proposals out there. There's increased loan forgiveness. There's proposals as far as how you could get more substitute teachers who are currently in the classroom, further engaged with schools on a more consistent long-term basis. There's the paraprofessional approach that we used to have here in California to help get those teachers through the system and into the teaching workforce. So I just wondered if you're thinking about what's the most effective, what's the biggest, if we have a suitcase full of money, we want to tackle this issue, what's the best approach to focus on teacher recruitment in California?
Thank you, Chairman McCarty. It truly is a critical issue. We're seeing the tip of the iceberg, the retirement age. Baby boomers are retiring out. The uncertainty of the recession created less of an interest in committing to the profession of teaching. There was some of that also included the bashing and blaming of teachers and finger pointing, and that confused the public. And so first we're looking to get some help from philanthropy to help do a statewide campaign on the wonderful values of teaching, the great rewarding experiences you can have as a teacher, to both recruit people from the workforce today who are in other careers to come into our classrooms and share their skills, as well as to recruit new teachers. As far as specific programs, I'm co-sponsoring the legislation with Fran Pavley on the Apple program. We have a couple. Senator Allen has a proposal on a residency program. We know that when student teachers have a chance to really work in the classroom and have that firsthand interaction with students, they're much more likely to stay in the profession. And so, thank you again. This committee and the legislature supported the $490 million for capacity building for PAR and BITSA. Those dollars we will look forward to reporting back to you, but they're critically important in maintaining teacher workforce. We lose about 18% of our new teachers within the first 3 to 4 years of their practicing the profession, and a lot of that's due to a lack of support, and so the mentoring programs will be a big help. We do need to work on multiple fronts. There's another proposal I talked to Assembly Member Bonilla about, and Linda Darling Hammond, who's written a lot. The Stanford professor is just a wonderful leader in education. This would be to start the teaching credentialing program earlier in the undergraduate years, in your junior and senior year in college, so that you could graduate with your BS or BA degree and a teaching credential. So there are programs in other states where this has been done, and accelerates. It has obviously another benefit: less student debt for the new teachers, and a really great way to see if they want to be in the profession. There are other programs. San Bernardino City School District has one. Brentwood, Northern California, has teacher cadet programs or teacher training programs. So students commit to a 3-year course of study to follow the career pathway to become a teacher. And they have first-hand knowledge, the pedagogy, subject matter. They go to schools, they read and interact and teach elementary kids and middle school kids. And guess what? When they do go on to college and get their teaching credential, where do they come back? To their home neighborhood, and they reflect the community they came from, and they add diversity. So that, I think, is a promising area as well.
Okay. Thank you. I wanted to shift to the career tech piece, and you mentioned that a bit, but this was a 3-year effort, and I think we have, is it 400 and 300?
Yes.
Million? Yeah. And so there's been some concerns that the money goes down the second year, and if we have demand out there and there's willing participants, we don't want to just shrink it the next year if it's going. So just want to ask you: is the $400 million the right number for the first year? And do you have any concerns potentially the next year, which is the budget year we're talking about, by going down $100 million?
Thank you for that good question as well. The two programs, the Career Pathways Trust, the $500 million. The idea was you would create sustainable partnerships so that business and labor and government entities that would bring young people into the employment world, into the mentorship world, would stay the course, and those financial commitments would continue beyond the actual use of the grant. And the same is the premise behind the career incentive grants, that there would be matching, local commitment, and then a sustainability. It's a question. It's not a worry yet, but we are going to monitor that very carefully. What happens at the drop off from the $300 million, from the $400 million to the $300 million? We're processing the first $400 million. I think we put out already close to $100 million, and the rest is in progress of being distributed. So we'll give you a report. I think it's an excellent point that we need to monitor that and make sure we don't hit an edge and then trip and not have the sustainability that we're looking for.
Okay. Questions from other committee members? Actually, maybe we could stop here for just 1 second and take the roll.
McCarty.
Here.
Chavez.
Here.
Kim. Here. O'Donnell. Ting.
Here.
Okay. Questions for our superintendent? Mr. Ting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr.
Yes.
Superintendent, welcome back. Couple questions. I know that we had a chance to work on greater accountability now that the LCFF is almost 95% funded. I was just wondering what further steps can we take to ensure that the money's actually getting to our students? I know that we've been looking at a variety of things and haven't always been able to see eye to eye with the Department of Finance or the governor, but just wanted to get your thoughts about what else we could further do. Obviously, I was very supportive of making sure we take away the categorical funding and taking away the handcuffs, but we also want to make sure we're doing our job and providing the right amount of oversight to make sure the money's actually getting to the classroom.
Again, excellent question. We have a system set up. Obviously, it's a local control system, and I strongly support that. I'm trusting our school district leaders, those who are elected, the superintendents and their administrative staffs, to carry on in a way that's transparent and a way that really engages the community genuinely in setting priorities. So among the things we're doing is tracking that. The 58 county offices of education are responsible for reviewing the LCAPs of each of the districts within their boundaries. Then I and my department are in charge of looking at the county plans for each of the county offices of education. And so what we're collecting and working towards collecting more thoroughly is best practices. And one of the first areas is how have different districts across the great variety of 1,100 districts in the state responded to the challenge and the opportunity. And mostly I'm hearing they've responded genuinely, not token, here's the plan, rubber stamp it, to the parent groups or teacher groups or business groups. They're wanting to engage the community, and it's been a healthy process. Now, the concentration grant money that's given an extra portion based on English learners and foster kids and kids in poverty, how to track how that is going towards those targeted groups and making sure that they get their fair share of the help that was intended. That is something that the county offices will be reviewing. The Collaborative for Education Excellence, Carl Cohn, is our new director for that. I sit on that 5-member board, and we're going to be, again, working to collect best practices and then having trainings and workshops with other districts to share exciting ways that they were able to involve their parents in a genuine way. Ultimately, if a district is found not to be meeting its plan, they're given a chance to correct course. If they're not meeting their goals, their stated targets and outcomes, then the county superintendent will counsel them about what needs to be improved and then offer help through the collaborative. So the collaborative will have some funding to provide technical assistance. Maybe it's in English learners supports, maybe it's in mathematics, maybe it's in mentorship. We were talking about the BITSA and PAR type programs that we could share some of those best practices. Ultimately, if they do not get back on course to meeting their outcomes, or they just say, we're going to take the money, but we're not going to be part of your system, they have to appear before me, before the state board of education, and explain themselves, and then there are consequences from there. But the idea is to build capacity and support and early on intervene and make sure districts are on track. And most, I think, are really genuinely wanting to do that.